Welcome to the Soul Deep Podcast with Jessica Janty. Join me as we dive deep into raw, real, in-depth conversations about life, love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, what it is we're really here for, and anything in between. I want this to feel like a safe space for anyone on a spiritual journey, trying to find answers in your truth by having open heart and open-minded conversations. And my hope for you as a listener is that you feel this is a safe space here, a place to hear things from a different perspective that may challenge you and your thinking in the best way possible, allowing you to give grace to how you've been raised or what you've been taught or told to believe. And perhaps you find your truth as I search for mine on this journey we call life. So grab your favorite drink, cozy on up to your couch or wherever you listen from, and join me for these soul deep conversations. Hello, welcome back to the Soul Deep Podcast with Jessica Janty. Today I have with me Rossi, and she is an author, a speaker, and a coach, and I'm so excited for her to dive into her story to tell us about herself. But before we go too far, I'm going to have us just drop into some breath just to ground in our energy, just to take that power of the pause. So if you are somewhere where you can close your eyes, I suggest closing your eyes while we do this. If you are driving or somewhere where you can't, just follow along if you can. So just closing down your eyes, or maybe just doing a soft gaze down to your lap. And we're just going to take some slow, deep breaths in through our nose and out through our mouth. And using our breath to bring us into this place of presence where we are not distracted by the outward things, where we are really just here in this moment, letting go of things earlier today, letting go of any to-do lists or things we need to do later, and just being here. And just allowing your breath to go in and go out. There is no beginning, there is no end. And this power of the pause that I like to call it, just allowing yourself this moment or two of stillness. It is really powerful for your body. It is really powerful for your nervous system. And I know sometimes we feel like we don't have even a minute or two to take this pause. But I want to tell you that sometimes taking this pause is the most powerful thing that you can do. Sometimes when we're in the heat of the moment and we get upset or we're feeling really stressed out, if we can just take a moment or two, slow down our breathing, focus on the here and the now. This activates what's called our parasympathetic nervous system, this rest, this digest state, this state that allows us to answer and to function and to be in a place of grounded energy, in a place of empowered thoughts and actions instead of these chaotic, sometimes angry outbursts. So just using your breath, using this pause. And wherever you are, we'll just take one more big, deep breath in together. And a big exhale. Just letting that all go. Our exhale is really powerful in letting things go and releasing things that don't serve us, that maybe extra energy that just feels chaotic, or thoughts that aren't serving us at the moment. And so it just calming and being with your breath is so powerful. So this is something that you can do anywhere at any time, obviously, as long as you're not driving. But I love to start these sessions. I love to start my coaching sessions this way, just because I feel like it is just so powerful. It almost gives you your power back, because sometimes we're just so rushing and chaotic and we can't even think about the next thing. And so if we just pause, that allows us to really focus our energy, our attention, and all of that. So thank you for joining me in that. And then before we get too much into things, I love to do a little cheers before we start. And so if you want to show us, because you have a cute cup, I know, it says, yeah, not a day over fabulous. I love it. So great. Yours is kind of pink and so is mine, which is
I
fun.
know.
Mine says best mom ever. I got that as a Mother's Day gift
Oh, I love
here.
it. So
Yes. So what are
awesome.
you drinking?
It's just water.
Oh, nice.
I
Sounds good. Water's
I
important.
Yeah, I have coffee and well, I try to do my water first because it
Yes.
helps our organs, especially in the morning, and
Mhm.
then I jump into the coffee. So,
Sounds good. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here again, like I said. And so I'm just going to turn it over to you. And I would love you to just tell us about yourself and who you are. And then maybe also if you want to go into your soul's purpose, because that is one thing that I
mm,
love to talk about here on this show. It's really just getting deep into who we are and our purpose here. So I'm just going to let you take it away.
yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Jessica. I am just so honored to be on your podcast. When my world flipped upside down, I didn't know where I was going. It was literally a leap of faith. It was leaving my corporate job that I climbed the corporate ladder, that I just grew so confident and I had everything in place, everything structured. And then for me to walk away was huge. It was such a huge risk, but I did it all because I knew the value that I had inside of me and the value I had for my voice and how I can truly help other people. And so I was finding out that, or so it seemed, is that every time I was at work, people were just attracted to me and they just wanted to talk. They wanted to talk out their problems. They wanted a word of encouragement. There was times where I would pull up to work. I worked at a treatment center, a water reclamation treatment facility. I was an engineering aid and construction inspector. So I would drive up to the gates where the security was, and she was just this lovely lady, and we would literally talk for like half an hour. And so she would like tell me what I was like literally coaching her and I didn't realize it, and asking powerful questions, giving her that motivation, encouragement. I was expressing with her what I do, like my experiences and what I've gone through and how I came out stronger. And then it was funny because people would be in the back, like the contractors waiting to get in, and they would like beep. I would just like, she would open the gates. So, I mean, they were pretty nice, but they're like, come on, ladies. Like, we knew them, this was a joke. And so, they would go by and then we would just continue talking. And it was so fun. And then people started catching on. So then a couple times in my office, some of the maintenance guys, they would come, and one guy in particular was going through a really, really rough time with somebody that passed away, and I was their person. And they would come and they would sit and they would just like express what they were going through. And I was there more so as a listening ear because when you're going through grief, that's really hard. Sometimes it's just best not to say anything and just, offer them a hug or just listen and try to be understanding. And so that's what my life was, and I was like, wow, I'm like, I really think this is my purpose and passion. And there was a story that I heard, and it was from a tribe, and the chief told a man, what is the two greatest things in life? What are the two biggest milestones in life? And he said, well, I don't know. I think it's the day you are born and the day you get married. And he was like, it's the day you are born and the day you find your purpose and your passion. And I was like, wow. I'm like, that's really interesting. I'm like, and that's a good way to think about like the two biggest milestones in your life. It's like the day I'm born and the reason why I'm born. And some of us don't even get there for decades, And I'm like, wow. I'm like, I feel like I really found out my purpose and passion at the age of 30. And we think, wow, that's bizarre because you've already lived 3 decades, but it's really not that apparent. See, we live in a society where it's like culture takes shape, religion takes shape, your friends, there's biases, there's so many things in the environment that could shape who we are, but is it really who you are? So
Mm.
I like to go back to
Mm.
childhood.
Yeah.
Who were you as a child? What did you like? What were those quirky things about you?
Mhm.
And I remember when I was a child, I would stand in front of a fence post, an abandoned fence post, and I would sing. And I would imagine the crowd saying, Rossi, Rossi. I was like
Love it.
singing and I was using my voice. And then I think, gosh, I was like, I was a speaker. I was a singer. Like I use my voice to inspire and uplift and to bring out something beautiful. And it's funny because I do that today as a speaker, as an author and a coach. I use my voice, whether verbally, whether in writing, whether it's asking powerful questions and helping someone else. So it's like really like being in tune to who I am and what my soul and my spirit thrives. And because I'm faith-based, like I know that God has a purpose and a plan and a destiny for every single one of us out there.
Yeah.
But will we find it and will we walk that and leave a legacy?
Yeah. Wow. Oh, you said so many great things. I loved that one was kind of like a ooh, where you said who you were as a child. Like before all of this, I've been going into, I have a group coaching program and we're really getting into like inner child healing and yeah, it's like who you were before the world told you who you should be or you had to be. Like, you know,
Exactly.
your teachers, your parents, your pastors, your friends, your all of
Mhm.
these people. And while they all mean well and they feel like they're doing this to help you, it's they're putting all of their imposing beliefs and all their imposing like what they think you should do instead of asking you who you are and what you want to do. I feel like that's
Mhm.
kind of the culture that we grew up in.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just love that you're going back to like who you were as a child and really going from there. It's like almost unlearning all we've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And in reality, yeah, sometimes we have to when you're moving into that purpose, that passion, even me as a speaker, as a coach and an author, I have to go back to the beginning. And it is almost like forgetting some of the things that those false beliefs that I believed, even the false beliefs that I believed about myself, because I have a story and I have a past and it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's some of
Mhm.
my horrible, most darkest moments. So it's like, yeah, getting all of that junk off and truly going back and believing in yourself again, having that confidence, believing in who God made you to be, who He created you to be, and just knowing those, like I said, the quirks, the characteristics, the attributes, those beautiful things about you, because we're all unique. We all have unique fingerprints.
Mhm.
So, like you are unique. We have proof.
Yes. Oh,
So,
I
yeah.
love this. And I know that you have, because you've written a book, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I know this book is based off of your story because you have a story, a past. And so if you are willing to share with us, I would love to hear, your past and then how you got to where you are today, how you even got to be writing this book and all of that
Sure.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, one day after I felt like I was in a good place where I have came out of like a lot of the darkest moments in my life, I said to myself, okay, now it's time to write my story. And for me at that moment, it was, okay, I'm going to write the story for me. I'm going to write the story because I want to see what I have come out of, and then there's still parts that I need to heal from. So, like, even as I wrote the story, there was times where I was in bed and I was just weeping, like
Mm.
crying. There was like sensitive moments where, like, for an instance, when my mom and my dad split up. My dad and he's saved and redeemed now, but he was an alcoholic. And as a little child, we didn't understand those things. So when my mom split up and when they were fighting over us, I could remember my mom on one side, my dad on the other side, and then me being pulled in different directions. And because my dad wanted to take me, but obviously realistically he couldn't, and so he left, and that was the last time we saw my dad for some time. And I remember me and my siblings, there was three at the time, so it was me, Marilyn, Nancy, and we would run to the window every time we heard a car drive by, and we would look to see if it was daddy, and we'd be like, daddy, it's dad, it's dad, and we would run to the window. and it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And so even that just brought like memories and just brought tears. And I just remember like, wow, I really needed to heal from that. And so just going back to those parts, those sensitive parts as a childhood, looking back at it and just healing from that, growing from that, and even like praying and saying, Lord, look, I struggle with this. I struggled with this in the past. Please help me to get through this, or take that heavy emotion, take it off of me so I can be healed and truly walk in the next path in life or whatever that is. And so as for me, growing up, a single mom of four kids, we did struggle. My mom didn't drive, so we took the bus everywhere. We grew up in a not so good side of town, south side of Milwaukee. And so she was a working mom. And there was three of us at the time, and then later the fourth came. But because she worked so hard, she came home, she did the best she could. She made dinner. I remember we'd get so excited for dinner. We would eat, and then she'd go and take a nap. And she would sleep. And then because of the area that we lived in, there was a lot of gangs. There was drug activity, a lot of like alcohol activity, gangs. And so I don't want to say but we saw that, all of us as siblings, but I decided to be rebellious. And I went out there and I experienced the world, and I experienced the dark world. So I actually ran away at the age of 16. I hung out with gangs. I lived in a local trap house. We got homemade tattoos. We drank bottles of E&J, and then we were fighting. And it was what I knew because it was what was in my environment. And so I ran away. Then one day I decided to go back home because I was hungry and I was getting a little sick of the life that I was living. I mean, I was only a kid at this point. And so I remember looking for loose change on the floor, and like I would look and see if there's quarters, and I knew that McDonald's was down the block, so if I found $1 I could go get a cheeseburger. Like that's how I was living, and
Mm.
I didn't have to live that way, but it was because of my choices that I chose. And so then I thought, this is stupid. I'm just gonna go sneak through the window while my mom's at work, my sisters are at school. I'm gonna sneak through the window and I'm gonna eat. So I did that for a few times, but then somebody was locking the window. So I don't know if my mom realized that, hey, this window's open or something. Maybe I left a clue or something. She didn't know it was me. But so the next time I came, the window was locked. And then I'm like, okay, then I was like, because I mean, at this point, the house that we were living in, we were just drinking. We were smoking weed. We were just being crazy. People slept throughout the day, partied all night. And then I remember I'm going to go to school because I can eat lunch at school.
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to school. So I go to school, not realizing that the police have been called. They're looking for me. I'm on the run. And so I get to school and the principal grabs me and he's like, young lady, we've been looking for you. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, your mom was in here in tears. She's been crying that you're missing. And I'm just like, my mom hates me. Why would
Mm.
she be looking for me?
Mm.
See, I had this thought that she hated me, and I didn't realize. Now as a mom, I realized like she struggled just as much as I did as a child. And she even struggled as a child too. And the unfortunate thing is that our generation, we don't have many men. A lot of the men have walked out. And so I
Mm.
seen the generational cycle of my mom being a single mom, my grandma being a single
Mm.
mom. My grandma was actually in prison for 10 years. And then her mom was a single mom, died at age 36. And that's all in my book. So if anybody wants to purchase my book, it's
Mm.
called Unshakable, A Woman in Christ, and you can find it on Amazon. And so it talks about the story and like the cycles and like breaking that cycle. But so she did what she could, but at that moment in my life, I didn't care. I mean, I was a teen, young adult. So then I eventually left again and then didn't return home. But I put myself in really bad positions in life. I was searching for love in all the wrong places. So I found myself in abusive relationships. I was in three abusive relationships, whether they were mental or physical. I solved problems through fighting. So I was also violent as well. And so I had a lot of hate,
Mm.
anger. bitterness. I couldn't really see past the box that I was in. I was just self-pity was my game. Anger was my game. Bitterness was my game. But the thing is, I knew about God because when I was young, I was raised in the church. But I said, that stuff isn't me. I said, I don't want to serve God. I don't like religion. I don't like how people label people. I don't want any part of that. And I want to live my life. I want to do what I want. And so I did, but I put myself in pits. I mean, even morals and ethics in society are like, whoa, honey, like what are you doing? And it's all in my book too. So I don't want to give you all the details, but yeah, there's a lot. And so found myself in these abusive relationships. Then one final straw happened to me, and I was like so broken, so burnt, just I like did not want to live anymore. I was like, I if I can't be loved, if I'm struggling, if I feel ugly inside, why do I even want to live? I tried so hard to get out and I fell back into my pits. And I found myself in that cycle throughout life where I was trying to do better, but then I would fall a couple steps back and then I would get up and try to, and then it's just like society wasn't made to help single moms. Maybe now it is, but it wasn't when I was, or maybe there was things in place and I just didn't know the resources, but I would just do good and then fall back into the pit. And then one day I was like, something's got to give up. And I'm like, I can't help myself anymore. I don't know what to do anymore. I was even living in a rooming house now with my son. And yeah, I just realized like this isn't the way for me to live. And I went to church one day and I'm like, well, I'm going to try God. I'm going to go back to the beginning. So I walked into church, and a beautiful church in Milwaukee called Faith Builders Church across from the airport. And I walked in there, and I heard good things about it from people that I knew, that it was non-denominational. And I mean, you could go being yourself. You can go comfortably. People don't sit there and like judge you or look at you funny. So I said, okay, I'm going to try it. So I go in and I kind of sneak into the back. I sit in the back row, and I'm a little late and the music's playing, and I just wept. I was like, the music touched my soul. And I was like, I'm home. Like I knew I was home. I knew I was back in God's loving arms and his grace. And I'm like, gosh, Lord, I so messed up. I messed up so much for so long. 12 years I messed up. And I'm happy that I could be home, back in your loving arms. And that's all I needed. I needed his love. I needed like the father, the prodigal daughter's return, the prodigal son's return, where the dad's just like, come back home. And that's hard for me because as like I love my dad. I do. And we have a great relationship right now. But at that time he was still in his ways and he wasn't around. He had already moved out of the state. So, and I didn't have any brothers. I don't have any uncles here. I have one in Texas. So it's like I don't have anybody to go to, and I was just hurt and battered. And it just felt so good that I could just find God and really experience him and have that relationship with him. And so that was the turning point in my life. And it wasn't easy because I still face challenges, but I knew where to go this time. And he helped me out of my pit little by little, took me out and then helped me walk. And I walked in faith. And then, so I kept pursuing, kept challenging myself. He got me good jobs. I would pray and then I would have a job, an open door for a job. And then finally I went into that career that I was speaking about earlier. And then it was almost like now that I'm fixed, he's like, okay, now I got this for you. So now let's work on this. And now you are going to be who I have called you to be, which I could have always been that. But I was in a dark place and I didn't see the light. Now I can see the light and now I can be who God destined for me to be. So,
I love that. I feel like sometimes you have to go through the things that you do, like the trials and the, sometimes people are like, well, why would God let this happen to me? Or why would God put me through this? And sometimes I don't know necessarily that it's God putting you through them. It's just the path that you're taking. We have free will, but he
Yes.
can use all of our everything. He can use everything for a purpose. And so, knowing that you have gone through all of this, now you can help women on the other side or help people on
Yeah.
the other side. And so,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you do right now, because I don't know if you specifically help women or what you specifically do. If you want
Yeah.
to talk about that, you can.
Sure. Yes. So, and exactly what you said, like in my book, I talk about how my failures became my ticket to success. That's why I truly believe that whatever you're going through right now, you can use that pain for purpose. You
Mm,
can come out of it. You truly, truly can. Like if I could do it, I know you can do it too. And
mm,
so I help people focus on themselves, self-care. I help them build their faith, help them to grow confidence, and help them to find that purpose that God has destined them to be.
mm,
And so that I do through coaching. But what I'm finding though is that a lot of us are gaining the skills and knowledges of entrepreneurship. So I am an entrepreneur. I decided I want to open my own coaching business. So I did that. And through that, I'm able to speak, I'm able to write my publications, and I'm able to coach. And so I teamed up with a company called BizStarts, and I get most of my clients from BizStarts, and that's entrepreneur coaching. But I still have room and I still put, the women number one to help them build in their faith, their family, and their business. And I'm part of the Fellowship of Extraordinary Women, and I've been certified through them. And we take our leadership events, we do our speakers courses, we do our coaching courses. And so that has just helped me tremendously in my business and to always continue that learning, that
mm,
learning the new trends, continual education, and it's helped me with my clients. I've even learned how to hear God and hear the Holy Spirit prophetically speak through me so I can tell my clients, okay, this is what God is saying. And I've been able to do that and learn that through the institution that I've gone through for coaching. And because we can all hear from God, but
mm,
will you find that place in your spirit where you can just shut the world off and really hear what God is trying to tell us?
mm,
And so that's what I do, and I love it. It's just been an amazing journey. I'm not going to say it was easy. There's challenges. There's times where you have to pick up your faith, pick up the word of God. Where do I have it? I here where I feel just downcasted like David in the Bible, and I'm just like, I don't even know, God, what I'm doing. Where are you? I don't hear you. And then
mm,
like the other day I was just looking at out the window in the back, and I heard the Holy Spirit say, "Do you see those buds on the trees?" And I'm like, "Yes, I see the buds." He goes, "Your season is almost here."
mm,
Because the buds blossom in season. That was March. And now I was looking today and I see all the flowers budding and everything so beautiful. And it's in his perfect timing because everything has seasons. Even Wisconsin has seasons, and everything grows in its perfect timing. And it's just like I knew what he was saying, like just hold on, your season is coming. And that season literally I'm seeing it unfold before my eyes. And there's so many things that God has already lined up for me that, especially this one, too,
mhm.
the podcast, and like just me being able to use my voice to help and uplift others. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. And so are you in the church when you do your coaching, or do you do everything online, or like how do you practice?
Sure. So I do my coaching online through Zoom. I did have a workshop, but what I found is that most people like the comfort of being in their home, being on a Zoom call. So I do that more here online. But some women also like to meet at a coffee shop because it's
Mhm.
really nice to get, your cup of coffee or water or tea, and then we meet and just like the environment's nice. And so we'll do that. Like today I do meet a coaching client later this afternoon, and she's like, "Can we meet in person? Because we've been doing Zoom." And I said, "Absolutely, we can do in person. I love in person, but if you can't do in person, we can definitely do a Zoom call."
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
hmm
so good. Now, okay, so how how long were you on your own? So like you were talking, just going back to your story a little bit, because they're just little things that
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I wonder. So we were 16 when you left.
Hmm.
And then when was it that you went back to school? Were you still 16 or was it like almost a year later or
Yeah, so I was 16 and I was a runaway for for probably a few months.
okay.
And then when I went back to school, they brought me home. And then I was at home for about a week. And then I said, I'm done. I want to live on my own. I felt like I was an adult, which I really wasn't. But I'm like, yeah, I could do this. I got this. So I left and I knew that I had a cousin. And at that time, me and my cousin weren't close because like I said, we have a family history. There's my grandma actually had 7 kids. And so we have family in different places. And so
Mhm.
I knew I had a cousin out there. And so I decided to look her up. And sure enough, she wasn't even that far. She was probably like, if I lived on 12th Street, she was like on 27th Street. So I was like, oh my God, my cousin's been living here this whole time. So then one day I decided just to go. I packed my bags and I went and knocked on her door. I'm like, hi, it's your cousin Rossi. Can I live with you? And she's like, what? She's like, yeah, come inside. So she actually let me live with her. And she was a single mom too. And she was going through some things herself. And there's more stuff in the book about that. And so she's like, you know what? I talked to your mom and she's like, she said you could stay here, but you have to go to school. And I'm like, okay. She's like, so, I mean, honestly, she was young too, and she goes, I mean, you could do whatever you want. I just like you have to go to school. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'll go to school. So they moved me into an alternative school, which was only probably like 100 students. And if you didn't go to school, they would literally come knock on your door
Oh,
and
wow.
get you out of bed. Yeah, they had a bus and they would get all the students that weren't at school, they'd come get you. And I thought that that was a lie. But when my sister didn't go to school because they had put her in that school too,
Okay.
they actually went to go pick her up. And I was like, oh, they're not kidding here. Like they will go to your house and they
Yeah.
will get you. So I went and I graduated and I have pictures. I was like, I made it. And then I was still set in my ways. But see, the thing is I knew that education was my ticket to success. I
Mm,
knew that if I could stay in something, even if I was doing all this crazy stuff, I could get an education. I
mm,
can at least get a good paying job. And so I continued to go to school. And then once I turned 18, I got a job. And then I got my own little apartment with a roommate and I kept going to school. But oh, and I wanted to say one thing that what really put me on fire was that I remember getting into a fight with another gang and the police came. It was at night. It was probably like midnight. Police came. There was like all these lights everywhere. And I remember getting pulled. They handcuffed me. And an officer, it was a woman, and I don't know who she is to this day, but she goes, listen, you will never amount to anything
mm.
in your life. And I remember being so angry.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't know nothing about my life. You don't know what I've been through. You don't
Mm,
know my childhood. You don't know nothing. How dare you speak into my life?
yeah.
But guess what? That was a wake-up
Mm,
call.
mm,
And I was like, I can't let her win. I
right.
can't let that and not that maybe she wasn't even I think to this day maybe she wasn't even doing it out of hate. Maybe she was doing it to spark a fire in me. I don't know. But I just knew that I wasn't going to let those words define my future.
Mm,
And so I was like, I am somebody and I'm gonna be somebody.
yeah.
So I had it in me. I just made poor choices, poor
Yeah.
coping skills, destructive behaviors. But when it came to school, like I soared. I was like,
Mm,
I'm gonna keep going. My English teacher, I wasn't good at reading and writing at that time. And I went to college and I did good in math and science. That's why I took engineering, but reading and writing I wasn't great at. But so when I went to college, I scored poorly on my English test, and my English teacher said she wrote it on one of my papers, and she said you don't have college like not potential, but you don't have the skills to be in college. I would really rethink what you're doing, and I'm
mm,
like. And now I'm to this day, I'm like, wow, I can't believe she said that. Like she wrote it on my paper.
Wow.
And
Yeah. Yes.
I'm on my
Oh,
second book.
uh,
And I went back to school late because I was in a community college doing a 2-year degree. I went back to school later, earned a bachelor's, and graduated summa cum laude with a 4.0.
wow.
Oh,
Isn't that amazing? It's amazing what those teachers, I think everyone probably has like, maybe not everyone, but some kind of story like that. Like I have a teacher when I was in nursing school because I'm a nurse by background. And
sure.
there was a class that was just really, really hard. And she said to me also, she's like, I don't think that you can be a nurse. Like this is,
Wow.
I don't think you're cut out for this.
Wow.
And that was like my turning point where I think I was like slacking off a little bit. I wasn't putting my full effort into everything. And that was like my turning point where I was like,
Yeah.
who is she to tell me that I can't do this? And so it really like lit a fire under my butt where I was
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm going to show her that I can do
Yes.
this, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes we need that nudge. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
So the book is about like a woman who could conquer anything through Christ who strengthens her. Like really like my faith has been my strongest assets. I have childlike faith and I seek a promise in God's word and I'm like, okay, Lord, your word says this.
Yeah.
So come on, and it people find it funny, but I'm like, but that's what the Bible is here for. It's here to help us, and you can use God's words and you can say, Lord, your word says this. Your word promises an abundance. So I'm going to believe for that abundance. And I know that I can have that too. And so it's just like, just to truly be an unshakable woman in Christ. That's what this book is about. So if you want to be unshakable, if you want to conquer, if you want to know how to pray, if you want to know the promises, purchase the book. You can, even if you have a messed up past, it's okay. God's grace is sufficient. I highlighted this because it says, by grace you have been saved, redeemed, and set free through faith in Christ. And this is not of our doing, it is the gift. It's a gift. Grace is a gift, not as a result of works, so that no one may boast. So we can't even work. It's just
Mm.
freely given, and it's a perfect gift that we
Mm.
receive. And
Yeah.
anybody can receive that.
Mm. I love that. Mm. Yeah, that's really good. So how did you get here now then? So your story took us until you were a single mom living in a, what did you call it? Like a group, some
Like a rooming house. So
room.
I lived in a room.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. So it was somebody's home and you were just renting a room there, basically?
No, it was a bar, and I
Oh,
lived
okay.
up top, and there
Okay.
was a bunch of rooms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how did you get from there to where you are now?
Yeah. So the place that I lived, I was safe there. But I knew like, okay, I'm in the a rooming house. Because we got evicted and I knew that it was just gonna be temporary. But a few months passed and I'm just like, okay, well, I need to work. In my book, it talks about how I went a year heavy in cocaine and alcohol. And so being in that rooming house just woke me up and made me to understand like, okay, you have the skills, you have the education, because I had already graduated from my community college. But again, like I kind of mentioned, I would go backwards, like I would do good, but then I would fall back. And so I just was like, okay, enough's enough. Like you're 23 years old, you have a 3-year-old son, like he deserves a better future. You have the potential, but you keep falling in these old patterns. Like what is going on? But I wasn't good inside. Like honestly, I was dying inside. I didn't know my worth. I didn't have confidence. I needed help. And so my sister at the time was moving out of her house. She rented and she was moving into a new house. And so I asked the owners, hey, how much is the rent? And at that time, he's like, well, 650. And so then my mind's like, okay, I have to find a job so I can pay 650 rent. So then I went to a temp agency and they found me a job. And so at this time I had a record, I had a felony on my name. And so I like messed up and I knew that that was on my record. So I'm like, oh, how am I going to find a job? Because at this point I was bartending now. And so I went, found a temp agency. They put me in a position. and I loved it. They put me as a computer aided drafter because they knew I went to
Mm.
school for engineering, and they teach you AutoCAD when you do
Yeah.
like the engineering. And so I found a $14 an hour job as a computer aided drafter. Again, like 12 years ago, that was pretty good actually
Yeah.
in that time. So I decided to take the job, and it's like my mind was like, yes, I'm getting back on track.
Mhm.
This is it, God. I'm doing good. I'm running the race. I'm getting back on track. And because I still like knew about God, but I wasn't like fully like surrendered. And so I took the job, and then I moved into the place. So everything was like lining up.
Mhm.
And then I went backwards again. And then me and my partner at the time, we were abusive to each other. Then he left. And then I was so desperate for love, I found love in all the wrong places. And I found a new man. And before you knew it, I was finding out things about this person little by little. And it just made me want to hurl up in a ball and cry. And that was that was hard. And so I was playing the part at work that I was this professional, this
Mhm.
person that has it all together in life, but I really didn't have it all together. I put the facade on, and I went to work, and I was in this CAD position, and I was doing fine there. But then, you come home, and then there's just all the chaos. And so this time, though, I was getting stronger, though. This time, I didn't let the relationship destroy who I was building,
Mhm.
but it really, really tore me inside. And the person that I was with, I literally call him a Lucifer. The chapter in my
Mhm.
book is called Lucifer, and it's lies, deception, and me believing the lies because I was so desperate for love. I just wanted love. I know that we're human beings and we're created for love. So I didn't know nothing else. I just was promiscuous, gave myself up, and didn't realize how to value me, myself, my body. And then there's another chapter called Finding the Perfect Love, and I'll let the readers, read that chapter. But yeah, finally got that all done and over with. And then I just, like I said, I continued to make sure that my son could have a future and that we could have a future. And because I felt like a terrible mom,
Mhm.
thinking back, I even think back today, like, God, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry for putting me and my son through some of those ugly moments in our life. And like sometimes I want to beat myself up inside because I'm thinking like, gosh, he was only 2 years old, 3 years old, and I had him driving around with me while like I was out going to parties or, just being stupid. But God forgave me.
Mhm.
And my son, thankfully, he doesn't remember a lot of things, and he has forgiven me as well. And I told him, if I ever did anything to hurt you, or if you saw anything that you shouldn't have seen, I'm so sorry. And he's like, Mom, you're fine. He's like, I was so little. And I was like, I know, but I wasn't living right. I was into drugs and alcohol. And he's like, Mom, he's like, you're fine. And I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure that like I didn't destroy you. No, he's like, no, you didn't, Mom. He's like, you're fine. Now he's doing great. He took up the sport boxing, so he's sparring. He's learning mental awareness. He's learning responsibility, accountability. He has a great team, and he's doing great. So, and then I have my two young ones, and it's an amazing time. I have my husband, and we have a dog, and we're
Mhm.
living a good life now. So I thank
Awesome.
God that I'm alive because there's so many times where I could have really been dead, and I'm here. So
Yeah,
sharing my story.
for a reason. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Mm. Wow, you have such a an awesome story, and I know a lot of it was hard, but it is. It's like that ultimate redemption story. That ultimate, like
Yeah.
you talked about, the prodigal son, the prodigal daughter
Yeah.
coming home. Like it's just beautiful. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing.
Yeah.
How is, I know you talked about your dad and your relationship with your dad. How has your relationship with your mom, did that ever repair? Were you guys, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Me and my mom, yeah, we have a great relationship. She doesn't live far from me. Her and my aunt come over all the time. They
Mhm.
help me out with the kids. So we do have a great relationship. I've apologized too. And we've been over that. We've talked about it. I know the book did open up some new wounds, which was really,
Mhm.
really hard. But again, we got through it. We prayed through it. We had great help. And now it's like let bygones be bygones, and let's move on and let's continue to conquer.
Mm.
And my dad, he lives in Detroit and he's doing good. Again, he's alcohol free over since a 50-year battle. And he's doing so good. He's married now. He has a loving wife. And we're actually going to go see him this weekend. So
Nice.
it's amazing. And yeah, I just love what God does. And he actually has a small vacation home in Mexico. And
Mm.
I had never, I'm Hispanic, by the way, and he's from Guadalajara, Jalisco, from a little town by a place called by La Barca. And I had never went to Mexico. And 2 years ago, I went and he goes like every summer and during the winter time. And he's retired already. So he's actually going to be moving next year to stay there. And when I went for the first time, I just knew I was meant to be there. And he was married now. And so I went, and one morning I wake up and her name's Maricela. She was in the kitchen cooking breakfast. My dad was already up early, sitting outside on the porch on his rocking chair with his coffee. And I get up like a little girl, right? And oh my God, this story's gonna make me cry. What God does, like literally, I wake up and I hear Maricela in the kitchen. My dad's out there, and I go to my dad, and he's sitting there with his coffee, and he's just staring outside. And I grab a coffee and I just sit with him. And we're just sitting there enjoying our coffee, looking outside. And then she goes, "The food's ready." So we sit down and eat, and we're eating breakfast. And I'm eating, and I just happen to like, knew somebody was staring at me. So I'm like eating, and I look up, and my dad's just staring at me with a smile. And in that moment, I'm like, gosh, God, you brought all those years that I missed him in my childhood. You brought him back to me. And it felt like if I was a little girl and like those years that he was gone came all back.
Mm.
And I could experience what it was like to wake up and have breakfast with a mother and a father.
Mm.
Even though she's his wife, but
Yeah.
the like the shadow of what that looks like.
Mm.
And so it was just for me, I needed that. And so I knew God knew that I needed that and it just placed me there so perfectly at the perfect time where I was healing from all the past trauma. It was just like another little gift, another little box. And it was just like, oh, I just felt like a little girl and I could just get those years back in just
Mm. Yeah.
like the 5 days that I was there on vacation. So
Mm. Yeah, that's like
yeah.
a beautiful, like inner child healing, that deep inner child.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is so
That is
important.
so deep.
Yes. Yes, I could feel it. I was getting teary. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, because
The
I think
journey.
that work is so important because no matter if you've had a traumatic childhood like you did, or even if you were someone who lived in a home that was relatively normal. I don't know that there's ever really a normal, but
Yeah. Yeah.
then people are like, well, you can't have trauma, but trauma it's not necessarily like big
Yeah.
things that happen to you. It can be a parent that's absent or emotionally
Yes.
absent or physically
Yes.
absent or all of that. And that's stuff that we carry. And as us as adults now, being able to look back and knowing that our parents were humans that had their own really rough
Yeah.
upbringings, a lot of them,
Yeah.
and almost then like turning around and giving that grace and that forgiveness. Like, I know that you did the best that you could with what you had.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't, like, I'm here to forgive you, because that forgiveness from ourselves to them
Yeah.
is so much more healing for ourselves even than for them. A lot of times people are like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to forgive them because I don't feel like they deserve it. And
Yeah.
that's not the point of forgiveness. That point is like so that you can heal those pieces of
Yeah.
you. So
Amen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah.
This
That
is
is.
such a beautiful conversation. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story, for being vulnerable. I love having these deep conversations because I feel like, excuse me, that allows other people to
Yeah.
show up and be like, okay, especially with your book, because I have her book, by the way, as well. Especially with your book and sharing the parts of you that maybe you didn't even want to share with the world because you were embarrassed or you felt bad about them, or even, you're talking about for your child, like to show up and put it all into words and share it with the world. That's allowing other people to be like, okay, she did this and look at her now and look at where she's come from. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's just such a beautiful, yeah, you're really
Yeah.
allowing God to work through you, which is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love sharing.
Yes. Well, let the viewers know how they can find you, how they
Sure.
can, yeah, work with you if they're interested in working with you.
Yeah, so you can find me a few different ways. You can go to www.journey, so the word journey, and then the number two, alignmentcoaching.com. I know it's a little long, but it's journey to alignmentcoaching.com. Or you can search unshakable.podia.com. Podia is spelled Podia.
And I can
Unshakable.
put that all,
Okay.
yeah, in the notes so people can find it easy. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And then you can also find me on YouTube, Journey to Alignment Coaching. And I'm building an Unshakable e-course that I hope to have this summer in June 2024. So that'll be my story, and that'll be breakthroughs and how you can have breakthrough and become a conqueror and be unshakable in faith. So I'm putting all that together, and hopefully it'll be done soon. So
I love that. That sounds like a
yeah.
beautiful course for people to take, especially
Oh,
if there's somebody listening here and they're like, I don't even know how to start. Where do I even start?
yeah.
That sounds like a great place. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then one more, I do have an audio podcast, and it's just daily devotionals in the morning. You can find me on iHeart or Spotify, and that's New Beginnings by Rossi, and they're daily
Awesome.
devotionals.
Oh, that's so cool. And that's on
Yeah.
YouTube too, did you say, or just on?
Just right now, it's on iHeart and Spotify.
Okay.
New
Awesome.
Beginnings by Rossi. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.
It's just an encouraging word for the morning.
Yeah, that's perfect. Sometimes that's all you
Yeah.
need is just a little bit of encouragement. So,
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
well, thank you so much for being here today. It was such a great conversation. And thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you loved listening as much as I loved recording. Each and every conversation that I have here on this podcast just lights my soul on fire. I love having conversations where we explore and challenge our ways of thinking. So if you've resonated with anything here and you're looking for more, please connect with me on Facebook in my Soul Deep community group, which is free. I'm also offering all my listeners a free month in my Soul Deep Connection membership. I have poured my heart and soul into this membership, bringing you resources to help you grow into the best and truest version of yourself. I've used my knowledge and experience as a nurse, combined with my knowledge and experience as a coach, breathwork facilitator, and somatic embodiment guide. This library consists of breathwork, kriyas, and other resources and modalities that will help you learn about and give you the healing tools to live the life you've been dreaming about, and to help you find your true passion and zest for life again. This library of resources is vital for everyday maintenance. And on top of the library of resources, there are live monthly calls, ranging from breathwork, kundalini, full moon or new moon circles, as well as guest speakers on a variety of different topics, from decluttering to marketing to sisterhood and all things healing and wellness. So make sure you join today to get you back on track to living that thriving life that you are longing for. Remember, the first month is free, and my hope is that you find so much value that staying is an absolute no-brainer. It really is everything that I was looking for as I started my journey, and so much more. I truly hope to see you inside my community. And if you haven't yet, please follow me here and on social. Like and subscribe, and make sure to share your favorite episode with your friends and community. And when you do, make sure to tag me in that post. If you tag me, you'll be entered into a drawing for that month where you can win a free one-to-one session, breathwork or coaching session with me. All the links will be in the show notes here below. Until next time, Soul Deep fam, and in the words of my dear friend Mary Lacey Banks, I'm holding you so tight in a thought hug.